Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com, and this is Center Seat, my Star Trek podcast. Hello and welcome to this episode of Center Seat. Long overdue episode because I'm going to be talking about, or offering my thoughts about Star Trek Picard Season 2. So I've been threatening this in comments I've made in other Longbox Review episodes, and finally I've... It's been a while since I've seen the season, and so I had to go back and review kind of like the show plot synopses and watch some videos as well to prepare for this. But because, spoilers, of the overall way I feel about this season of Picard, I didn't feel like I needed to rewatch the episodes because I didn't want to waste my time. So, that gives you a little preview of what I thought of Star Trek Picard Season 2. But what I'm going to do is, I think there were 10 episodes. I have the brief synopsis of each episode. I'll read that I pulled from Memory Alpha, and then I'm just going to give you some thoughts about the episode, things that I reacted to, things that I liked or didn't like. So that kind of a thing, and I'll wrap it up at the end with a bit of an overview of what I thought about the season.
There are some moments that haunt us all our lives. Moments upon which history turns.
Well, hello, my friend.
What is this? What have you done?
Welcome to the road not taken.
Do you have any idea what's happening here? Reality has been broken.
There is a divergence. I know someone who could help us understand the change in time.
I'm gonna need some tea. Earl Grey, piping hot.
Hello, Guinan.
Your answers are not in the stars, and they never have been.
Earth 2024. A single change
Is vastly more dangerous than you realize. None of our tomorrows are guaranteed. You're gonna have to let go.
We're stronger together. You must bring us home.
This is a very bumpy century. But I think I'm getting the hang of it.
I believe you have one final frontier yet to come.
Okay, so first off, we get the first episode, The Stargazer, not one word Stargazer as in the USS Stargazer, but The Stargazer, which I thought that was kind of neat. A play, of course, on Picard's past with that ship. And of course, we actually get to see the new Stargazer starship. Which I thought was kind of neat. Anyway, so but I'm jumping ahead. So let me rein that in and give you the synopsis real quick. Again, this is from Memory Alpha. Starfleet must once again call on legendary Jean-Luc Picard after members of his former crew, Rios 709, Raffi, and Jurati, discover an anomaly in space that threatens the galaxy. Well, that synopsis does not do this episode justice. However, I thought that with this episode, the second season started off strong, especially in regards to I get a little bit of what I wanted between Picard and Laris. And because I loved Laris so much from the first season, I was really hoping that we would get more of her in the second season. And we do eventually. But not only that, but as I said, I kind of shipped those two characters, even though she was with the other Romulan in the first season, whose name I've forgotten. But anyway, there's she expresses some attraction to Picard, but he rebuffs her. So it's like, oh, darn. But like I said, we do get to see her a little bit later. And then we jump to everyone being back at Starfleet. So Rios is back at Starfleet, Rafi's back in Starfleet, and Elnor has joined Starfleet, which I thought that was a nice little touch, although I don't know. Just that premise just kind of bugs me, given what we knew of those characters, Rafi and Rios especially. You know, what did the events of last season somehow change their minds about Starfleet? Did their encounter with Picard, how did that play into it? You know, it's just they're just giving us stuff that we just have to accept, and they don't go into it. There's no character motivation shown. There's no progression from last season to this. It's just, here it is. Here, oh look, they're in Starfleet. Woo! Yeah. I apologize if my flippant comments about the season you find grating, but you know, here we are. So I almost would have preferred to see a special series, even obviously not a too long of one, but to see how the USS Stargazer, which is kind of a neat looking ship, especially compared to the original Stargazer from the Next Generation. Never liked that class of starship. It was interesting. It was different from the others, but it just never did anything for me. Anyway, I would have liked to have seen a bit more time or more of Captain Rios commanding the Stargazer, along with Commander Rafi. What's her last name? Musiker? I don't remember, but I just call her Rafi. To see how those two would have interacted. But you know, we don't get that because of what happens in this episode. Anyway, it was nice to see, jumping ahead again, where it's nice to see Guinan again. You know, we knew Guinan, Whoopi Goldberg, would be returning to the character and guest starring on Picard. But you know, here we get the first of people commenting on Picard's love life, and you know how he hasn't really opened up his heart to love, and why are you alone? Why are you choosing to be alone? And I'm like, what? I mean, we have already. I feel like in the Next Generation, and perhaps even the movies that followed, it wasn't that Picard wasn't open to exploring relationships with people, or that he was incapable of love. So why is this a thing now? I don't understand what the deal is. In fact, the first thing that came to mind when I revisited this scene with Guinan is, if you're not familiar with Patrick Stewart's A Christmas Carol adaptation that he starred in many years ago, I hear him so very clearly as Scrooge, as he jeeringly says this to his nephew in that movie. What is love? So I don't know. Sorry. Anyway, so there's a distress call, or a call from this spatial anomaly asking for Picard, and so you know they bring him back on the Stargazer. Jurati joins up because even though in season 1 she is a cyberneticist, she somehow also is a crack communications / language specialist to help work through the message that's coming through the anomaly. Later in the show, she's shown to be a cybersecurity hacker and basically all around super scientist like Spock or something. to do whatever scientific thing they need her to do. And don't get me wrong, I like Alison Pill's character Jurati. I found her one of the more intriguing characters that they brought in for season 1, and I generally like her in this season. It's just like I don't like characters who can do everything just because they are, quote unquote, a scientist. So, but they had to keep their cast small and all, whatever. Anyway, so what happens is the Borg have come through the anomaly, and which is a different looking ship. It's a multi, or not a multi. What am I trying to say? It's not a cube. It's not a sphere. Not a simple geometric shape. It's got a little bit more going on to it, which I thought that was nice that we get that. But then the supposedly the Borg Queen comes across and then tries to take over the Stargazer and by extension the assembled fleet that's there, and then says something to Picard, something that his mother said to him when he was a young boy, right before Picard blows up the Stargazer. So my initial reaction to that was the Borg again. Do we really need another Borg-centric story? But, at least interestingly, what's this connection to Picard's past with his mother, whom I can't remember if it was mother or his grandmother that we saw in that first season Next Generation episode. I probably should have looked that up before I started recording, but oh well. Anyway, also, whenever a self-destruct command is given and they actually blow the ship up, you know from the get-go that this is not going to stick. That it doesn't matter. It's a dramatic thing at the end of the episode, but whatever. Plus, it's undercut by the appearance of Q, telling. See, I might be getting the details confused between this first episode and the beginning of the second episode, but basically, the Q says the trial was never over. And so while I didn't particularly care for the fact that the Borg were back, I was okay with Q being back because John Delancey is such a wonderful actor. The way he embodies Q and his torment of Picard has always been one of those wonderful things about the Next Generation that I've loved. So I was okay with that. Plus, I knew he was coming back, so I was primed for it. Okay, episode 2, Penance. Picard finds himself transported to an alternate timeline in the year 2400, where his longtime nemesis, Q, has orchestrated one final trial. Picard searches for his trusted crew as he attempts to find the cause of this dystopian future. So, much like the Borg, oh great, we got time travel shenanigans that happen to involve all of the principal cast of this show. So it's like, okay, that seems a little contrived, but all right. I guess maybe Q is orchestrating this, I guess. But what is Q trying to tell Picard? Picard tells him he's tired of Q's BS, but then Q slaps Picard, giving a bloody nose, and tells him, quote, "This is not a lesson. It's a penance." So, a penance being an act done out of repentance for committed sins. So what sins has Picard committed? So that was interesting. Q's acting way out of character, angry and violent. So what is going on with Q? Anyway, it was also interesting in this episode to see Seven not only react to not being Borg, because she wakes up and she just happens to be inexplicably the leader of the Confederation, i.e. the evil Federation. Is this Q's doing as well? If so, why? Is it to help Picard? The connections here just are not made. Granted, it's the second episode, but we don't get a clear or at least I didn't get a clear understanding of what one thing meant to the other thing. At one point, the Borg Queen in this episode tells them that Q changed one moment in time in the year 2024. And there they need to seek the Watcher, which leads us into the third episode, Assimilation. Picard and the crew travel back to 2024 Los Angeles in search of the Watcher, who can help them identify the point at which time diverged. Seven, Raffi, and Rios venture out into an unfamiliar world 400 years in their past, while Picard and Jurati attempt to gather information from an unlikely and dangerous ally. So the first thing that happens is this? That again, did I mix up the episodes? Elnor has died. So it's like, okay, that's one member of the crew who's down. Given that we don't really see him really until the end of the season, why even have him on here? Except, of course, it gives something for Raffi, something new for Raffi to sulk about and despair about. At least when she isn't flirting with Seven later. If you've listened to me talk about Picard season 1, you know that Raffi was not my favorite character in that season. Nor does she continue to be a favorite character in season 2. There is a scene with Jurati as the Borg Queen attempts to take her over, which gives Alison Pill the showcase. A showcase through which to show the various emotions, which she does. I think she does a pretty good job at that. I think overall she's been one of the stronger actors involved in Picard, even more so than Patrick Stewart, if I may go there. We get a new character, Teresa, whom Rios starts to develop a relationship with. I like her. I thought she was more than a match for Rios, which was nice. So we get to see probably not enough of her. Next episode is Watcher. So here we are. We're going after the Watcher. We find the Watcher. With time running out to save the future, Picard takes matters into his own hands and seeks out an old friend for help. Meanwhile, Rios ends up on the wrong side of the law, and Jurati makes a deal with the Borg Queen. At one point in this, hey, look, it's the same punk from Star Trek 4. But they played it a little differently. They also, I don't know if it was in this episode as well, but they also, Rios even says something about working in space. So again, another Star Trek 4 Easter egg that, it's just like, why? Was it really necessary? Anyway, these writers, producers, they just have no shame. Speaking of, 10 Forward is a place in 2024 as well. 10 Forward was the name of the bar that Guinan run on the Enterprise D because it was on deck 10 at the forward of the ship. I could totally see her naming her bar in the 25th century 10 Forward as an homage to that, but to name it 10 Forward, or at least it's called 10. Maybe the bar is named 10, but it's on Forward Avenue. So, it's just the writers being too cute. I just didn't like it. Although I will say I really liked the younger Guinan played by Ido Agayeri. She was great. She was a great guest star, one of the stronger characters in the show, as much as she got to do. So unless, although, my first thought was, why doesn't she know Picard at this point? Because they met in the 19th, whatever century it was, earlier century in the Next Generation episode Time's Arrow. Or is it because time was changed? But time was changed in 2024. So I don't know. Is this Q's doing or just lazy writing? Just, a convenience. Something I think is unfortunately endemic to this season. In this episode, with the ice stuff and the conversation about race between Guinan and Picard, it opened up the potential for, typical Star Trek social commentary. But they don't really do anything with it. It's there, and it's implied, but they never follow up on it. They never do anything about it within the episode or the season as a whole, and just comes off as, quite honestly, pandering. So I did not appreciate that. There's a car chase scene with Seven and Raffi, just time filler. Again, a lot of these scenes In a lot of these scenes, the characters are just filling up time to stretch out these 10 episodes. Maybe they should have done a 6-episode season or something. Given that the pandemic postponed them filming this season, according to some sources that I looked at, you would think that they would have had more time to finesse these scripts and make them a little tighter and better, quite honestly. We find out, speaking of something tighter that needed to be done a little better, the Watcher they find is Laris. Oh wait, no, it's not Laris. It happens to be a character named Talon. But she looks exactly like Laris, of course, although she's not Romulan. Wink, wink. So there you go with that. There's a scene with Q in this where he snaps his fingers and is surprised when nothing happens. Wait, so what is going on with, this is my reaction. I remember when I was watching this. What's going on with Q? He's losing his powers. Is he dying? Is Q dying? Is that why he's so angry and frustrated with Picard? Is this somehow something that Q needs to have Picard help save him? That was really interesting, that possibility. So now we go to the next episode, Fly Me to the Moon. Picard discovers an important person from his past may be integral to the divergence in the timeline. Q continues his manipulation of the timeline, taking an interest in Dr. Adam Soong. Seven and Rafi attempt a daring rescue of Rios, while Jurati faces the consequences of her deal with the Borg Queen. So, in this episode, we are introduced to another Picard, Renee, who is an astronaut dealing with anxiety and depression. This is the episode we actually find out that the Laris clone is actually Talon, and we are told that she is a supervisor like Gary Seven from Assignment Earth from the original series. So I actually like this connection to Star Trek continuity. But we don't really get more than that. So, we get to see some similar things, similar technology in her approach. Talon has been assigned to Renee Picard because there's something important that she does. And it becomes very integral. So, it's like, well, of course, it's Picard. An ancestor of Picard's, and it's also Laris / Talon. And it's like, what? These connections just aren't explored enough for my taste anyway. Again, why is Q trying to start this timeline divergence? And anyway, and oh look, it's another Soong. It's Brent Spiner playing another Soong. It's like, oh, okay, thanks. Why is Brent Spiner doing this? Because spoilers here too. This character Soong is probably the least interesting, least creative. That's not the right word. The least interesting of all the Soongs that I've seen Spiner play. So I don't know. They just must be throwing money at the guy to keep him involved because he's a well-beloved actor associated with the Star Trek franchise. Let's see here. Soong has a daughter, Kore, who it looks just like Soji and Daj. Just like, oh, please stop with this stuff. Okay. So, I thought, well, to give it some credence, I guess, I thought, well, maybe Maddox in season 1 was trying to pay homage to Dr. Soong, but why? By basing Soji on Kore? I don't know. It's an alternate timeline, so it doesn't even matter, right? It's just so convenient. My reaction here is I don't get Q's plan. He seems to be actively causing the divergence, but sent Picard and company back knowing they would work to correct it. We've never seen him so antagonistic before. Plus, if his powers aren't working like they used to, how can he be Renee's therapist and provide Soong with the information that he does? It's never explained. It doesn't make sense, other than he seems to be actively working against Picard, but he sent Picard. I don't know. I don't understand this. Okay, next episode, 2 of 1. With the help of Talon, Picard and the crew infiltrate a gala on the eve of a joint space mission to protect one of the astronauts, Renee. They believe to be integral to the restoration of the timeline. Kore makes a startling discovery about her father's work. So this episode kind of hit me as this season's Stardust City Rag, which was my least favorite season 1 episode, with everyone at the gathering pretending to be someone they were not, though not as over the top as in season 1 episode. Picard playing that over the top Frenchman, one-eyed Frenchman, was abysmal. I can't believe Picard did that. But it gives Jurati. Oh yeah. I've talked about everything that Jurati can do. Oh, she can also sing, which helps get Picard out of a bit of a snag. Although it doesn't make sense. Why would security not continue to do their job, even though Jurati is up there with the spotlight on her singing? Anyway, yeah. There we go. Next episode, Monsters. Talon ventures inside the injured Picard's subconscious mind to help wake him from a coma and face both his darkest secrets and deepest fears. Seven and Raffi go in search of Jurati, whom they fear has succumbed to the monster inside, i.e. the Borg Queen. Rio struggles to hide the truth of who he really is from Teresa. So, even though I just said that 2 of 1 is sort of this season's Stardust City Rag, this episode, Monsters, might be my least favorite episode of the season. The whole thing with Picard's mother and his role as a boy is just trite to me. It came out of nowhere. Given what we know about Picard's past, it came across as something that they do in a TV series like 7th season to spice things up for the main character. I just don't think they needed it. It was too ham-fisted, and we find out later it plays an integral part of the evolution in Picard and his relationship with Q. But it's just like it was just too much. Although I did like the actress who played Picard's mother, and it really was trying to shine a light on mental illness. Although, is it this episode or later where we find out from Picard's memories that the way that Picard's father dealt with it didn't seem like a 24th century thing to do. So maybe that is a good reason it caused a rift between Picard and his father. Although that's not what was implied in the episode Family in the fourth season. So, whatever. However, I will say I did like James Callis's performance in this episode. At first as Picard's therapist, but it turns out that is Picard's father. And James Callis is probably most famous to us nerds as playing Baltar in the reimagined Battlestar Galactica, and he was one of the stronger aspects of that show, and he does an amazing job in this one, despite the fact that I did not like this episode generally. Next up is Mercy. With time running out before the launch of the Europa mission, Picard and Guinan must free themselves from FBI custody. Seven and Raffi come face to face with Jurati and the horror of what she's become. This episode, this whole FBI angle is just, again, another way to stretch out the story unnecessarily because, it comes out that I think in the next episode that it's all for naught and didn't matter. But we do get Q showing up finally after Guinan summoned him in a somewhat dramatic scene. And it's confirmed that Q is powerless and dying. Although he does, I think in this episode, that it's in this episode that he makes a comment about, it's the next step. But it's very clear that there's something up with Q and it's not good. So at least we get that. We get a furtherance of that part of Q and his story in this season. But again, why do all this for Picard? Why involve Picard in this? That's not clear yet. And we have 2 more episodes to go. So it's like, come on, we should have a little bit more than what we have. Considering that he's powerless, again, I brought this up already. How's he do all the things that he's doing here in this alternate past? I don't know. The penultimate episode, Hide and Seek, Picard and his crew fight for their lives as they come under attack from a new incarnation of an old enemy. But to survive, Picard must first face the ghosts of his past. Seven and Raffi have a final showdown with Jurati. Well, technically the Borg Queen. New low. We get this whole scene with these soldiers having been turned into Borg-like drones. That that whole aspect of this episode just really turned me off. Just because you're turned into these soldiers are turned into Borg-like drones does not mean that their laser sights on their weapons turn green. It just it's just like, oh look, they're Borg, so therefore they have to have green lights. And given that there are so many of them, there is no freaking way that these few individuals, 4 or 5 of them, could survive the onslaught. No way. It's just stupidly choreographed throughout this episode. I mean, yeah, I guess you can make allowance, like, well, they're Borg, so they move slowly, and they're, it's not the refined collective that we've seen the Borg. I don't care. It's just dumb. Yeah, it's just more time wasting. All right, let's move on to the final episode called Farewell. Maybe this should have been the series finale of Picard, but no, we get a 3rd season. Anyway, Farewell. With just hours until the Europa launch, Picard and the crew find themselves in a race against time to save the future. Well, I mean, that really kind of sums up the whole season. Anyway, all of Soong's plans end up for naught, wasting, again, precious dramatic time. There's this scene between, and maybe that was last episode, but there's a scene between Picard and Soong where they talk to each other and say basically nothing of importance. Just a moment just to have Stewart and Spiner share some screen time. Kore meets up. Spoilers here. Surprise. It was definitely a surprise to me. Kore meets up with Wesley Crusher, a traveler, who offers her the opportunity to become one herself, but why exactly? Wesley became a traveler because he exhibited some unique talents, via his genius. And as we saw that evolution throughout the Next Generation. But Kore, where, how, what? While it was a wonderful surprise to see Wesley Crusher reprise his role as that character, Will Wheaton reprise his role as Wesley Crusher, and I like it. I like the connection between the Next Generation travelers and we find out that the travelers are the ones who supervise the supervisors, the Watchers, Talon in this case, and Gary Seven. We get that connection with Star Trek lore. Okay, what? So there's that. We get a scene between Raffi and Seven where Seven kisses her, but what? Why? And I thought when Raffi asks about it, Seven responds, quote, "Let it breathe." And I'm like, is that some sort of communication from the writers about this relationship? This whole season they've been paired up together and discussing their feelings, but it's more about their own personal traumas than them connecting. It seems, again, so ham-fisted, pushing those two together as a couple. Maybe that they were trying to do that because of the whole Picard and relationship thing, and so if Picard can't be successful at it, somebody else will. Plus, we have the whole thing with Rios, with Teresa, because he decides to stay behind in the 21st century, which writes him out of the series. So everybody else is having great relationships now, but Picard maybe does. I don't know. I don't know what they were doing. It doesn't make sense. So anyway, let's see what we do get, and here's the whole reason why I continued watching this show. I really struggled watching this whole season. I won't say I was hate watching, but it was pretty damn close. So Q tells Picard essentially that he did all of this so that Picard could forgive himself regarding the way he felt about his mother's death, and allow Picard himself to love again. Okay. He also tells Picard that even gods have favorites, and Picard was one of his. Well, duh. I mean, you knew that if you watched The Next Generation. You knew that. You knew that Q had a soft spot for Picard. There was, it just occurred to me. I think there was a Next Generation episode called Tapestry in which Q allows a dying Picard, an injured and dying Picard, to revisit his past and change what that means for him. And it turns out it wasn't such a great thing. And it included a relationship with one of his friends. It's like, it contradicts that history with Picard and Q. Again, it doesn't make sense to me. But like I said, we know that. So Picard did those things Q did those things with Picard. So we knew that. So do we need to have it expressly stated? Maybe before the newer audience. Maybe that's just what this is. They're trying to explicitly state those things that we older viewers or people who watch The Next Generation, we already knew this stuff, but maybe it wasn't as clear, or they wanted to make it more clear for people who maybe weren't as familiar with the lore, I guess. At the end, Q does offer to send everyone back, but that would mean the end for him, or I choose to believe a new beginning. But it does. I feel like it's an end to Q's journey in Star Trek. Watch, they'll bring him back for a cameo or something. I mean, he does appear in Lower Decks, which I thought was lots of fun. Let's see, Elnor. That's one of the gifts that Q. I keep wanting to say Picard when I mean Q for some reason. Anyway, that Q gives the crew, because Elnor's back, but he's on another starship. So that I guess that resolves Rafi's issues with his death, the guilt she felt. But because of all this, Picard learns, which we saw him do the same thing in the finale to the Next Generation series. So, but okay, but because of the experience in the past, he cancels the self-destruct because he now recognizes the Borg Queen. From the first episode, saying that phrase that his mother said to him. So he knows now that it's the Borg Queen in his present is Jurati, having evolved as a new Borg, a new version of the Borg, a new life form. The Borg have been transformed in the 25th century because of this experience between the Borg Queen and Jurati, which I actually like that. That's something new. That's something different. That's something that has evolved now. So, maybe this whole thing with the anomaly, because what happens is, the Borg, Jurati shows up and links all the ships, uses the Borg technology and the Starfleet ships, forming a shield, because there's this huge burst of energy that comes out of the anomaly, and it would have destroyed billions of lives. And so, everybody working together saves the day. Although we don't know who created the anomaly and why there's this. Is it a naturally occurring thing? Is it a weapon being used? Maybe that's something that gets explored in season 3. Probably not, because I can't see them wanting to do that. But who knows? I did enjoy the irony of Seven, whom Picard field promotes to captain of the Stargazer because Rios isn't there. That she, who was not allowed, we learn in an earlier episode, to join Starfleet because she was part Borg And I also like the connection to Janeway. She makes a comment about Janeway going to bat for her, but in the end, Seven decided to join the Fenris Rangers instead. But she takes over as Borg because she's now Borg. She's been Borgified because Jurati convinces the Borg Queen to not kill Seven and the others, I think in the previous episode. And so now she has her Borg implants back and all that. But she's now part of Starfleet, and she's taken over another of Rios's ships because she was captain of Rios's old ship at the beginning of the season. And she's Borg. So now, I like that actually, that was a nice resolution to that arc for Seven. In the end, I felt like this episode and the series as a whole is redeemed in part because Picard accepts his feelings for Laris, or at least his heart is now open to that. And we get one final scene of them together at Chateau Picard, holding hands, and Laris is smiling. So, I don't know what that means going forward, because I kind of think we're not going to see Laris in the third season. But we shall see. But at least for that character whom I adore, for some reason, there's something about the actress's portrayal of Laris and Talon to some degree that I just really like that portrayal. I like the fact that she's Romulan, that she's part of Picard's life. I just like it. All right. Anyway, overall, if you couldn't tell, I did not care for this season. I was really, as I basically just said, I was really only interested in the Picard Q dynamic, and so at least there was that. The middle part there between the beginning and the end was just it doesn't make sense, like I said. But we get Picard and Laris. Really, it was a spotlight for Jurati or Alison Pill to play a bunch of different characters or character types. So, there was that. I enjoyed that. Like I said, I really like the younger Guinan. But a lot of it just seemed like filler, and convoluted filler at that. I already talked about the surprise at seeing Wesley again and the connection to the original series and all that. I really, really hope that we get another surprise with Wesley joining the Next Generation cast and they're just keeping it under wraps. Again, I kind of suspect not. But then again, like I said, it was a complete surprise that Wil Wheaton was in Picard Season 2. I would not mind seeing Seven again in Season 3 of Picard. She seems to be a fan favorite. At first, when they brought her in for Season 1, I was like, really? Why? Because she's a fan favorite. That's why they brought her in. But she's claimed her role in this new era of, or this, I was going to say new era of Star Trek. It is, but I guess what I mean to say is this continuation of the Next Generation. So to me, she's now part of that. So it'd be interesting to see how the Next Gen cast reacts to her and vice versa. So yeah, because she has this different relationship with Picard than maybe the rest of the Next Gen crew does. So that'd be interesting. I will say though, I'm glad Raffi, Elnor, and Soji / Kore, they're not coming back. Thank God for apologies to the people who like Raffi. She was my least favorite character, and Elnor is probably my second least favorite. But I will miss Rios. He and Seven and Jurati were of the new cast new Next Gen, so to speak, cast members, new crew, new Picard crew, were my favorites. So it's too bad. I would have liked to have seen Rios along with Seven. Maybe they should have had that relationship and carried that through. I don't know. Why do they need to have a relationship? Why do we need all this lovey-dovey stuff? Anyway, again, just like with Season 1, Season 2, I felt took a step even further backward, and I'm surprised that given Patrick Stewart's caliber, as an actor and his involvement in the production of the show that it just wasn't better. And I worry about this next season with the Next Generation. I have been hearing, well, actually, as I record this today, I saw some tweets from people who got advanced screeners for season 3, and they're just praising it. And I also, through the Inglorious Trexperts podcast, what's his name? Rob. I'm forgetting his last name. Anyway, he's involved somehow with this or has some insider knowledge. I forget now, but he has been saying how strong season 3 is. But I kind of chalk that up to him being a Next Gen fan, so maybe a little bit of rose-colored glasses effect going on there. But like I said, with the screeners going on, now I'm more excited. When I first watched or got to the end of Picard season 2, I was like, oh my god. Season 3 is not, despite the fact that they're going to bring back the next gen reunion, which again, during Star Trek Day, I think it was, I think Patrick Stewart directly said, this is not a reunion. This is not a next gen reunion, but it's a next gen reunion. I mean, they're bringing back almost everybody. So I had my reservations, but given the advanced praise of the show, hopefully it's not faint praise. I'm more excited now to watch season 3. But my God, I certainly hope that the story, the overall story, and the character arcs and the plotting and pacing are just 100 times better, because this was not a good example of a good Star Trek season. So, well, there you go. That's my thoughts on Star Trek Picard season 2. I hope I haven't turned you off on anything relating to Star Trek. I am a huge Star Trek fan, and so this disappointment, this expression of disappointment, is coming out of love for the franchise and for the characters. I just felt like the writers and producers just let those things down and let us down with this season. So. But as always, Star Trek was always about a hopeful future, and that's what I'm grasping for Star Trek Picard season 3. So we shall see. All right. Well, I hope you got something out of this episode. Maybe you hate listening to it at this point, but either way, I appreciate you listening. Thank you for that. And, join me for future Center Seat episodes as well. If you'd like to send feedback, you can do so by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com, or hit me up on social media at longboxreview at the various outlets: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Mastodon, Hive Social as well. And with that, I will leave you. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.